Now officials from Moscow and Beijing are the first known foreign visitors to North Korea since the pandemic border closure. Then Pyongyang to mock 70 years since deciding of the Korean War. Armistice, although it has largely held, it's never been replaced by a peace treaty, which means the two sides are still technically at war. It means tens of thousands of South Korean prisoners of war have been held captive in the North since the early 50s. A tiny number have managed to escape, but most are thought to have perished, as our Seoul correspondent G. Mackenzie reports. News that communist troops have invaded southern Korea for 3 years, fighting engulfed the Korean peninsula. In the 70 years since peace has eluded it, a set of documents is signed by General Harris. The delicate armistice signed in 1953 has never been replaced by a peace treaty, and tens of thousands of captured South Korean soldiers have never been returned. Is one of the very few who managed to plot his own escape. He lost his fingers not to war but to the 54 years he was forced to work in a North Korean coal mine. We gave our entire youths to that coal mine. We had no rights. You must have missed home terribly. Who wouldn't? I was all alone and scared. I could face a meaningless death at any moment. At what point did you give up hope that anybody was going to come for you? North Korea was saying it didn't have any prisoners of war, and so nobody wanted to question it. It seemed as if the South Korean government didn't want to make any efforts to retrieve us. South and North Korea are marking 70 years since the armistice. But for the prisoners of war, the battle is not over. They were branded outcasts in North Korea, left to perish in the mines. Few, if any, are still alive, but their children remain. Spent her childhood being beaten at school, punished by association. She was 6 when her father was killed in a gas explosion at a North Korean mine. Only after his death did she find out he'd been a South Korean soldier. In that moment, I hated him. I blamed him so much for making us all suffer, she says. She too decided to escape North Korea and the misery of being an outcast. How do you feel about him now? Now I respect him and try so hard to remember him. I feel different to other North Korean defectors because I'm the proud daughter of a South Korean war veteran, she tells me. By the time Lee arrived home, already an old man, his parents had passed away, believing their son had been killed in action. The absence of peace between the North and South have left Lee and the families of these soldiers struggling to find peace of their own. Jean Mackenzie, BBC News, Seoul. While I spoke to a young Gu Kim, who's the principal researcher at the East Asia Institute, and he told me the importance of the visits to North Korea by Russia and China. It proves that after the war in Ukraine, the authoritarian regimes strengthened their relationships and strength relations to boost their force to fight against its so-called like-minded groups, countries that led by the United States. So I think it still proves that looks like the Cold War is not ended on Korean Peninsula. Of course, recently North Korea has been testing many missiles. It's been a while since their last nuclear tests, but its military capabilities are definitely expanding. How concerned are ordinary South Koreans? Well, we usually say it's a game changer if North Korea has both the miniature nuclear warheads and the solely few missiles, and that's why we worry about whether North Dakota could develop ICBM is also its only few missiles, which could launch at the U.S. continent, but that is already happening. In South Korea, it actually happened in 2019 when North Korea this KN-23 missiles, which is liquid, I mean solely few missiles that can carry nuclear warheads. that which can fly up to 600 kilometers, which can hit any part of the South Korea at any time if they want so on now. We have to say that North Korea has capability to launch a tag on any part of South Dakota with nuclear warheads. And this is terrifying indeed. Of course, I remember back in 2018 during the Trump-Kim summit, something like 70% of the South Korean public were eager to unite the two countries. Do you think that has changed since the U.S. Pyongyang talks have stalled? Is actually that was the highest point. After we did a survey on people's no perception about the unification. And now, according to the most recent data collected by the Korean Institute for National Unification, now 53% of people support for unification, so this the number is the lowest ever since we conducted survey. And if we break down these responses by age groups, like the people who support importance unification drops from 66 to 39%. If age group moves from 60s to 20s, so it looks like more young people don't want